Okay, the recording started. Okay, should we start?
Start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's recording now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We are the DCS IoT team, and we're going to be talking about IoT today. So, a brief overview of today's workshop is we're going to essentially define IoT. We're going to talk about how IoT works. We're going to talk about the benefits, constraints, and usefulness of IoT in our solution challenge. And at the end of the workshop, we are going to have a little IoT quiz that will give the winners a few nice prizes. So I hope you're all going to stay in the workshop, enjoy it, and also take part in the quiz. So let's begin. We're going to first start with a video. I don't know if the video is going to play, so let me just send you the link right now.
Yeah, I posted the
Here you go.
link. It's on the Teams.
Can everyone see the link? Please let me know if you can. Yeah.
Link's working for everyone, yeah?
The video just takes a minute, so you can watch it. And then as soon as you're done watching, just put a thumbs up in the chat box, and I'll continue. I think we're done soon.
Let me know when we move on.
They'll just drop. They've watched it.
Okay.
Hi, Chrismetha. How are you doing? Nice, thank you. Yeah, definitely. We just started, so you'll be able to get to know a lot more about it as we go through the presentation.
Okay, I think it's time to begin.
All right.
The internet isn't just about.
Yep.
Great to hear it, Shannon. Hopefully you enjoy it today. Hi, Maisha. Has everyone seen the video? Should we continue? Sure.
Okay, can you...
Right.
I've changed slides. Can you guys see?
Yeah. Have you gone to the next slide?
Yeah, I have.
It's just showing the PowerPoint
Yeah.
interface.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. I'll just do it like that.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Okay. Let's begin now. So Internet of Things basically comprises the use of network-connected devices to provide information and make sense of it. So essentially, it's just a network of physical objects that are connected to the internet and that allow them to send, exchange, and receive information and data. So these devices basically communicate with one another and therefore result in information gathering and analysis. So simple household objects like your television, vacuum cleaner, and even your couch can be considered IoT devices as long as they can be connected to the internet. So it can even lead to your house being called a smart home. Um, something wrong. Okay, sorry. So how does IoT work? Essentially, IoT can be divided into four different sections. It can be divided into hardware, data, software, and connectivity. So in these four sections, let's first begin with hardware. So hardware is basically what is used to sense something that's happening. So it can be sensing a window that's opening, for example. And data is what makes sense of what has just happened or what has been sensed, what has been sensed, I mean. So software just analyzes and interprets the data that has been provided and makes something valuable out of it or makes sense out of it. And connectivity is used because without connectivity, you wouldn't be able to do anything at all. So connectivity is what essentially makes it possible to gather the information, analyze it, and then eventually create an action out of that. So IoT has been rising in this world because it's become something that's growing continually. The use of mobile devices, laptops, tablets, and other devices that are television that I just mentioned has led to the increase of an interconnected world. So there are basically bigger networks in the world, and networks keep continuing to increase and get larger. So the reason that this might be will be because of low cost. There's now low cost in devices, so people are now able to buy simple devices like mobile phones and therefore connect to the internet. There's also high availability because the world is growing and becoming more technologically advanced. There's new availability of different items that people can use to connect to the internet and thus increase networks and IoT. There's also low level of difficulty. Everybody is now learning how to use devices, and people already have prior knowledge of technology and simple technology. So it's much easier for IoT to become predominant in the world because everybody now knows how to use a mobile phone or a smartphone. Everyone knows how to use not every, I wouldn't say everyone, but most people know how to use laptops. Most people know how to use tablets, and most people know how to get on the internet and how to look for information, send information, retrieve it, and exchange information. There's also a high digital need. I would say high digital need because as the world keeps advancing, there's a new need for technology, a new need for advancements in technology. So more people are trying to develop new technologies, and thus this also leads to an increase in networks and also an increase in the rise of IoT. So common IoT devices can be simple wearable, common heart monitor watches like the Fitbit or Withings HR, or security systems, or even autonomous farming systems. Yeah. So the rise in IoT has also led to the com- has also led to the entanglement of artificial intelligence and interconnected devices, which is making almost everything in the world automated. Apart from that, IoT essentially encompasses anything or everything that's connected to the internet and mainly just discusses how objects are able to talk to one another. And this is the sharing of information or the communication that's done between different objects or different things. So this can happen from simple sensors to smartphones and just basically makes our world more connected. So essentially, IoT is becoming our world or becoming the new norm in our world. Um, so from combining all of these devices and combining the use of the internet, it's possible to gather information, analyze it, and create an action. And this essentially takes us back to the four sections or four fundamentals of IoT. So Ifti will be talking about the fundamentals of IoT now.
All right, so fundamentals of IoT. There are four fundamental components of an IoT. They are the sensors/devices, connectivity, data processing, and the user interface. So the sensors and devices, they are the main hardware of the IoT device that collects real-time data from the surroundings. The complexity of the data could range um, from simple temperature or location of the user to the form of a video feed. We have a IoT device on our hands all the time. Is our mobile phones that can collect data such as our temperature, surrounding temperature, and also the location, and can also record videos. Connectivity. This is the most fundamental part of the IoT system. It collects the data that we collect needs to be sent to a cloud storage through a medium of communication. Such as Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. The connectivity is also needed for the machine-to-machine communication. So so the analyzed data can be sent back to the machine, and they can perform action depending on the analyzed data. And now data processing. Data processing is the power of is the data that is collected by the devices that needs to be analyzed and processed to find a solution. The complexity of the data depends on the complexity of the the complexity of the data processing depends on the complexity of the data, such as like temperature, a simple data such as monitoring the temperature could be very simple to analyze, whereas something like a video feed would require a computer vision, for example, to analyze. It also leads to another significant driver on the technology field, which is big data. With many IoT devices collecting data, you need to use big data pattern and strategies to actually process and analyze those data. Otherwise, there would be too much data to process. And finally, the user interface. User interface is the action and the commands that are performed depending on the data that we have just processed. It could be there could be different types of action the IoT device can take, such as maybe if it's something simple. Simple such as like temperature dropping in your household, it can send an alarm or like a text message to the user to turn on the central heating of the house. Or it could even be like for extreme cases when maybe like say if the user is suffering from like a heart attack or something, it would perform the action automatically to prevent further danger. And this brings us to the implementation of IoT, which Mona will talk about.
So as I mentioned earlier, IoT has become really important in our lives and has become the predominant in the world. So because of this, the need for IoT has become increasingly important because of the advantages that it gives our daily lives and also the advantages that it can have in our projects like our solution challenge. So even though there are four components of IoT, there are also components that assist in its implementation, and we're going to discuss those under four pillars of IoT. So the core pillars that constitute the implementation of IoT are people, process, data, and things. So I will firstly be discussing people and process. So people are needed in the implementation of IoT because they're going to be connected to the internet and they're going to be using multiple devices to connect to the internet. So essentially people are needed because through people, you'll be able to discuss information, you'll be able to send and receive information, you'll be able to share ideas, you'll be able to develop a connected community, and you will just be able to develop your data into a higher level of information. So people are very essential in the implementation of IoT because they're basically, you need people to share the ideas, because if people aren't there to share the ideas, what are you sharing exactly? So when you talk about processes allow us to understand how people, data, and things work in the world of IoT. So with the correct processes, you can gain relevant information, and it can lead you to create a lot of value in the information that you're getting, and also lead to the assurance that the right information is going to be getting to the right people at the right time. So when you're talking about data, the world has become more intelligent, and the world of IoT has led to the evolution of connected things. So essentially, you need to be able to provide more useful information rather than just raw data. But raw data is needed before you can actually analyze information. So when you get this information from raw data, it can be transformed into a higher level. It can be transformed into higher level information, and thus can be sent back to computers, machines, and therefore people. So when this happens, we're just creating a more connected world, and we're also trying to alleviate different problems in the world and thus solve solutions, because now we're able to talk to each other, we're able to analyze our information, data, we're able to analyze the data and process it into information. There's just so much we can do with IoT. So finally, things. Things are the physical objects or items that we're going to be using when we're talking about IoT. So these things can be our fridges, our computers, our tablets, our phones, anything. And they're all connected to information, the internet, and also to people. So these things also allow us to capture data, and we're able to capture data through devices like sensors, and this allows people to make relevant decisions and also make informed decisions, because now um, because these things allow us to connect to the internet and thus look for information and also share information. So there's simple steps that can be addressed when you're talking about IoT implementation. So the first step is to set a project objective. So when setting a project objective, you need to understand the scope of your project and understand what exactly you're trying to solve. You need to have a problem definition and have accurate information about the problem you're solving to be able to come up with your objectives and your goals and your aims. So secondly, you need to decide on the right hardware. So hardware can be basic things like sensors, but you need to know that these devices are you need to know what devices are going to use, because you have different information or different data that you're trying to provide. So it can depend on if you're trying to provide data on weight, on sound, on volume, on color, on different things. So you need to know what exactly your goal and what your problem is to be able to even decide the correct hardware that you're going to be using in your IoT implementation. Finally, when you're talking about tools, even though the internet is the most important tool in IoT, IoT devices are also important because they ensure that processes are made. So you need your IoT devices to be able to connect to the internet and thus share information about what you're going to be doing, and also to gather information. So IoT devices can either gather information or receive it, or do both. So that's why our IoT tools and selecting tools is very important. The fourth step in implementation is selecting an IoT platform. So an IoT platform basically defines how everything is going to communicate and how the data is going to be handled in your IoT implementation or in your IoT solution. So you need to know the software that you're going to be using in order to know how to control and centralize the data, or centralize your IoT network. Lastly, prototyping and implementation are the final steps in IoT implementation. In prototyping, you need to ensure that you have a draft system that you're going to be using, and you have to implement it either in different stages or implement it all at once. You just need to have a fair idea of what you're going to do, have a prototype or a design, and then try and implement it. And finally, you implement the final product after you make sure that your prototype is successful. So what exactly makes IoT implementation successful? Data integrity and security are two things that ensure IoT implementation is successful. So security has become a serious issue when you talk about IoT, because as the world is becoming increasingly connected and there are more network devices and newer networking technology, there's a risk of cybersecurity issues. So we need to understand that data and information must be protected and ensure that they can and we must ensure that they can be stored and shared. we need to make sure that even though all of the information that we need to be able to solve solutions is available, it has to be confidential. That's what makes it successful. Another thing, the second thing is data integrity. So the integrity of data has to be assured, and this is done through assuring its accuracy, authenticity, timelessness, and completeness. And completeness, sorry. So success can be gained specifically when people are confident in the integrity of their data. So when you know that your data has integrity, you're obviously going to believe that your solution is meaningful and successful. It will be moving on with the advantages and disadvantages of IoT.
All right, so the advantages and disadvantages of IoT devices. So with IoT, obviously you can have a lot of, you can have a lot of automation due to the machine-to-machine communication between uh, uh, and you can automate a lot of stuff, thus saving more time. There's also you can increase the speed and efficiency of different tasks, because IoT devices enables you to complete numerous tasks with very quick speed. The machine-to-machine communication leads to a faster and accurate output, thus increasing efficiency and speed. Money, obviously, with the speed and efficiency and automation, this both allows this both reduces human intervention, thus saving more money for businesses. And finally, tracking would be IoT devices can keep track of different quality and viability of things we have. For example, a product we bought from a superstore it will know the expiry date of it, and it can keep track of multiple things at the same time, thus leading to a better quality of life. Disadvantages would be the security and privacy. Obviously, the whole IoT device, these are all connected through a network. If there's any breach in network, it could lead to a theft in your personal data to maximum detail. The reason for this is IoT devices usually requires you to usually have access to your personal data, and any network breach could lead to the theft of those data. We also have like a survey which shows that almost 12.7 million American are victims of identity theft. So these are pretty common, the breaches. The complexity. IoT devices are Although IoT devices complete tasks with ease, it is very complex devices. The hardware is very complex. The designing, developing, and maintaining of the devices are also very complicated. And also any minor error in one device could lead to the whole system being affected. And also it is very hard to fix a IoT device. You need you need to go into the hardware and make changes and stuff. And finally, dependence. IoT to work to its full potential, it needs to have a secure and fast internet connection. Otherwise, the devices would not be able to communicate with each other. And now, finally, Seema would be talking about the constraints of IoT.
Yep. So just before that, actually, there was like a really cool example I thought of for Internet of Things, where there's one of the latest models of the Samsung fridge is actually able to give you recipes based on what ingredients in your fridge are actually going to expire first, and you can actually like connect that to the internet to be able to find those. So I just thought that was pretty cool. Maybe I'll share that as well. Now moving on to the constraints of Internet of Things. So obviously the most important aspect for it is its battery life, just because it's put in places you don't want to keep recharging it, checking its battery. So what it does is that it tries to conserve power as much as possible. So one of the ways it does this is actually putting its devices into a hibernating mode. This means that periodically it will connect and disconnect with the Wi-Fi and the sending and taking signals is very on and off, you could say. This actually can lead to some problems when there are security updates, because those can only be carried once the device is actually on. So sometimes the updates fail because of a number of reasons, and some of them could be that the device losing power during an update, firmware becoming corrupted during the download, and human errors, such as conducting a firmware update on an incompatible device. This is something where if you were to make an update for a sensor, but you accidentally applied it to, let's say, another component like a thermistor, because they're not compatible, you're going to end up actually breaking the device, causing some sort of failure. So another issue is that any small error in the software could lead to all devices connected to it being affected. So the main problem with that is that if there's one small error in some small area you may have overlooked, your whole IoT device system is just... So that's definitely something that needs to be focused on as well. There's also limited memory, CPU, and flash memory. So the limited memory actually affects the running specifications for specific computation. And if it requires larger keys, the device won't be able to carry it out because it hasn't got enough memory. Another thing is the flash memory, which is the most restrictive. Most software and data that needs to be downloading has to fit within this, as well as updates and extra space just in case it needs to download more data. So it can actually lead to quite expensive components because you need to look at a lot at the memory storage. So moving on to the applications of the IoT, in particular to our solution challenge. So the IoT allows physical information to be converted into digital data, and it also gives you the ability for the device to filter through a lot of your data. So that will help you be able to fit through, find out whereabouts you're going to need to use the data. Also allows you to see where your devices are being used, your services, and your products. So, of course, this is important, especially if you notice that in a particular solution in the application, you notice that you are using more of your sources in areas where there's less connectivity. So you're going to know that you want to spend more time in those areas so that it's a bit better. As well as IoT using both hardware and software, it means that the receiving of physical data is linked to Google Cloud regardless of internet connection. So this is also useful in case we wanted to apply our application to areas that didn't have very good Wi-Fi. You'll be able to know that to continue to connect to the Google Cloud regardless of internet connection. So on-device processing allows the data collected to be filtered, as I was speaking through earlier. So this could be converting data to another format, sorting and summarizing data, and validating data to ensure it satisfies conditions. This is definitely useful as it removes anything like human error, as you won't need a person to go through all this data, and it saves a lot of time. The IoT project, along with all the devices and the data, needs to be scaled up, efficient, and affordable. This is definitely best done on the cloud, as it also gives us a chance to liaise with both, as we can use the cloud IoT core technology, which we'll go through a bit later. Now moving on to hardwares, which is quite a big component of IoT. There are several single board computers that were used. Mostly, the most popular one is Raspberry Pi. A few others are called BeagleBoard, PandaBoard, and Arduino. So, differences between these boards, like why would you want one over the other? The main differences actually between Raspberry Pi and the BeagleBoard and PandaBoard is that both the BeagleBoard and the PandaBoard have more connectors and additional hardware can be added. So if you wanted more sensors, you wanted more thermistors, you can add whatever you need to. They're also quite big. They're a lot bigger than the Raspberry Pi. So if you wanted a smaller project, you'd want to use maybe a smaller board. And the differences between these three boards and Arduino would be that Arduino is actually a microcontroller board, so it has less memory and speed. In comparison to Raspberry Pi, it also uses less power to run, but it can also last longer. So there's an opportunity there if you wanted to have a very long project base where it needs less time in terms of you don't have as much time to replace battery. That might be the one to go for. It also uses stuff like analog inputs that use constant signals like voltage to communicate your data. And then the final thing I'll go over is why is it so popular? This is just a picture of what it looks like. You can literally imagine it as if you had a PC, your actual hard drive. It's just literally a mini computer. You have USB ports, you can connect your mouse to it, your keyboards, everything. So it's identified as a complete working computer, and all that's required is for you to insert your SD card that contains your operating system. Another one is that it's much cheaper compared to the other boards, and due to the SD card system, it's a lot easier to set up. Where in terms of the other boards, you actually need to connect it to an initial setup. So that would require a bit more know-how in terms of how you should deal with those boards. Raspberry Pi seems to be most efficient in terms of if you haven't got as much knowledge on it, it's a lot easier. Now we'll move to Ibtisam, who'll go through a bit about the IoT Cloud Core.
Yeah, just let me stop sharing.
Hope you're all enjoying it so far. Kahoot's coming up soon. I know you're all going to be very competitive.
All right, so this is the. Can you see? Yep.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. So this is a cloud IoT core. So this is a platform that is fully managed by Google that allows us to connect to millions of devices that are dispersed globally around the world, and we can collect, process, analyze, and visualize IoT data in real time to improve efficiency and which will help us towards our solution challenge. We also collaborate with other teams such as Google Cloud, machine learning to predict problems and build a better solution. So this is free to sign up, but you need to pay if you want to use some of the components. So if you once you get into the platform, it starts as a dashboard where you can create your own projects, connect to Google Cloud, connect to different APIs and monitor and stuff. For IoT, if you go under big data on the left, big data, there's IoT core. This if it loads, yep, there you go. This would allow us to connect to the devices that is dispersed around the world and collect data, which we can start analyzing and processing it. So for the free version, you can get 0 to 250 megabyte of data per month. But there are different tiers which you can buy, where you can get up to 5.2 over 5.2 millions of million data per month, megabyte of data. There's also tutorials and documentation. So if you go to the Google IoT solution, there's like it tells you there's like different. Google has lots of resources to tell you like how it helps business grow, and there's also like there's different resources on the solution, videos to get started on it, and these are the partners, and then there's like developer kits, IoT developer kits, different AI kits, and there's lots of documentation and resources that will help us towards our solution challenge in January. But other than that, that's it, and we'll be moving on to the quiz.
Should we do the quiz first, or should we answer any questions now?
Yeah.
Up to you guys.
I don't know. It's up to Mona.
I think let's do the quiz, and then after, if anyone has any questions at the end of the session, we can just talk about that.
Okay, sure thing.
Let me just start the quiz. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, if you have the engineering know-how, definitely Raspberry Pi is the way to go. I actually have a couple of friends that want to build like a retro gaming station where they've got like old games that you have to download previously, but they're actually thinking of using Raspberry Pi to actually conduct it. So I mean, if you guys are into games as well, got that as well.
So yeah, if you guys don't mind joining this one.
Yeah, they wanted to make it in the office, actually, in an office, so it's quite cool. It's like one of those tabletops that you used to find in like Las Vegas, Chacadero, and places like that. Yeah, definitely a lot. Which games did you remake? I wouldn't say remake, but maybe like, you know, the old Street Fighters and Tekkens, maybe things like those first-person shooter games, or you know, those Super Mario games that you could only play in those what do you call those places? Arcades. That's the words. The arcade places.
The quiz isn't difficult at all. So good luck, guys. I'm hoping not everyone gets it right.
We did try to mix it up, but we were like, we can't be unfair and have no winners.
Yeah.
So
It's fairly simple.
wow, machine learning. Why have you got 5 people in your team? That's not fair. That means if any of you wins, does that mean your whole team wins?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we won't know who you are. Sorry, man, you're not gonna get the prize anymore.
So, are we waiting for any more people? How many? There's 25 altogether.
Should we not count 4 of us? So there's 21.
21, yeah, there's just a couple more people, a few more people.
3 more people.
Don't be
Actually,
scared, guys.
I
Go on.
won't say anything. It's alright.
Alright, I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, let's just start.
Yeah.
Examples of IoT devices. All 4 of them are correct.
If we go into a bit more detail with that, is that actually anything could be an Internet of Things device, even steering wheels, because they have things like those wheels, steering wheels can connect to your like sensors in the cars and everything like this. It's anyone.
Nice, yeah. The 4 main
Oh
sections are
wow!
hardware, software, connectivity.
Did you all guess that? Did you all guess that right? I was hoping that trick more people out. Okay,
True,
Kinga,
false.
Ellie.
This is an easier question.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Well, we should have put something like the rise of IT isn't due to its cost efficiency.
Ooh.
Yep,
Oh,
it's
bless, we
true.
still caught some guys out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually true. Because you have to spend a lot less money on things like people to do your work for you. You've got all the devices to do it for you. We should have put the stressful music on. That would be great. You know, just makes you even more nervous.
Can you guys hear the music?
Yeah, just very lightly. It's quite low, but it's alright.
Oh,
Okay, okay. catching a few more people out.
Yes, it was both. Sorry, I should have.
Asif and MO2. Ellie's in the lead.
Multi-select question again.
Oh, this is my question. I just remembered.
Blueberry
See how
pie.
many of you were listening to my part. Yeah, blueberry pie is the best flavor. Oh, we got a few people out with that.
Yeah, obviously not blueberry.
Oh, bless. Oh, Ellie, what happened there?
ML2.
Everyone's moving up. Great. Oh. Oh no, I'm excited just watching this, even though I'm not conducting this. Like, I'm not partaking in this. Oh, nice connectivity. You're right.
Connectivity.
Definitely, as we were talking about, it connects on and off. If it's not connecting, it can't update, it can't transfer data.
Nothing. Ellie's back on
People
top.
on fire now. Ellie, she wants the prizes, man. Don't worry, top 3 get prizes. Ooh, this is a good question, guys.
Yep, so the 4 pillars are people, data, process, and things. Those 4, the yellow one is fundamentals.
Oh, wow, that was quite a big jump, guys. Wow, Asif's in the lead now. Well, I think this was mine as well. Were people listening? I don't know, to be honest. This is quite a straightforward one, I think, maybe. Oh, nice, nice. True,
Yep.
exactly. Or the disconnecting, connecting does cause problems. Oh, no changes, no changes. Where's machine learning? I don't see them. I'm joking, guys.
Challenges of IoT.
The lack of things is definitely important. Oh, we got 3 people.
Yep. So
Nice.
privacy and security connect.
Sorry, where could I get the pin? Oh, it started already.
Oh, machine learning is back.
Oh no, why did I say that? Machine learning came back. No, it's rising from the dead. The pin, I don't know if you'll be able to enter it.
Yeah, but this is the last question.
Last question. Yep. All right. So yeah.
Oh damn, no. I shouldn't have said nothing.
Hey.
AH, well done. SLF, you know. Is this machine learning? Gosh.
Machine learning.
I shouldn't have said anything. No way.
Send us a screenshot of your
I did
placement
speak too
on
soon.
WhatsApp, and we'll send we'll send the prizes.
It's okay, guys. Well done, though. I do appreciate everyone's been listening, you know. But it's alright, machine learning. We'll do collaborations in the future. I know you guys always want to be like on top, but don't worry. It's a team effort.
ML stands for machine learning.
Machine learning, ML. Okay, so do you guys want to do the Q&A session now?
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Sure. Yeah, just send us a screenshot of
Your position
of
on
your
the phone,
placement on Kahoot, and your position. Yeah, and we'll send you the prizes.
Okay, so one of the questions was We use user interfaces for giving in our settings or inputs, but aren't sensors and devices a form of input too? Um, yeah, they are a form of input because they do give you the
So
data, so they will be included in that. Thanks, Pedro, for answering that.
all right, any questions? Any other
Yeah,
questions?
if that answer didn't make sense, maybe try to rephrase the question again. Like, it might be a bit helpful. But anything you have, any sort of questions, feel free. If you wanted another tidbit of information, Banana Pi is a hardware drive. You guys mentioned complexity. A more complex system is a more efficient one, but comes with more risk. How do you determine how you should design a system and its complexity? Ooh, good question. I'd say it really does depend on what your project might be. If you wanted a much larger project and you wanted to have a lot more, or you needed more sensors, then you'd have to use them. And then it'd become a bit more complex. But let's say you wanted a very small system. If you only need two sensors, then there'll be no need to have more things than you need. So it really does depend. If you want to have a very big project or quite a small one, it it depends on the amount of things that you want on your system, on your Raspberry Pi or your motherboard. Hope that answered it.
Okay, so
Do you think IoT's firmware is its
yeah.
downfall? Hmm. Anyone else want to answer it, or should I?
Actually,
See you guys.
no.
Um,
I wouldn't say it's its downfall. I think it's more
um,
like if you misapply it, then it can lead to some issues. But if you're very careful with what updates you put onto which softwares or sorry which things, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Especially because you can actually always keep updating your firmwares. Like you can make them quicker, you can make them faster if you wanted them to, and you can apply them to everything that needs to be applied. It needs to be applied to. So I mean, if used in the wrong way, it could lead to quite a bit of a big hiccup. Might need a lot of cleaning up afterwards. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's the biggest downfall.
Any more questions?
Perhaps his battery might be a bit more of a bigger one. Just because if it doesn't last as long as you need your data, then it just keeps cutting out. All right, I've got computer science students here. They can answer your question.
no, there's future in both software and hardware because it's very. The hardware is obviously there are device you're connected to. You're surrounded by lots of things around you. So IoT in the future, and everything is becoming digital right now. So there's digital TV, smart couch, whatever. So in the future, obviously, it's going to uh, IoT has future in both software and hardware because it involves both together. Um, it, software, well, there is future in the hardware as
They're
well
both
with the
essentially
hardware. So yeah,
fundamental
I
parts of
don't know.
IoT. So you can't say that you're going to just have software as your future. Hardware is very important because you need the IoT devices themselves. You need the things to be able to even call it IoT in the
Hmm.
first place. So I would say that both hardware and software
You
are
need
the
to,
future of IoT. Yeah. Are we
yeah,
going to
because
have?
you need them
Okay.
to actually collect the data. Oh, sorry. Please go for it.
Um,
How big would you say the risk of people hacker compromising
there,
IoT devices with no leverage? It it depends. It's very common. As we while we were trying to come up with the presentation, we saw like the network bridge and trying to security breach. These are very common. Just not even in IoT. IoT uses network, whereas even normal stuff there's is very common thing. So that's why to have a IoT system, it needs to be very secure and uh, secure from the hackers and
I would
people
definitely say
to
that the
before,
risk is
so it's
big
not
because I think that cybersecurity has become a very predominant issue in the world. I think that hackers would definitely leverage from using various attacks on IoT devices because of networking. Like we're basically making bigger networks and introducing more networking devices, and that leads to more issues. But through proper implementation and proper security measures, we're able to combat these issues. But I would definitely say it's a very big issue that could arise as long as we don't have proper implementation and have weak security.
Just to add on to that, actually, is the larger or the more things that you have connected to your IoT, the more likely it is that it can get hacked. So if you tend to keep it a bit smaller, you have a lot less chance of being able to jump into the system. And just to answer Aditi, I don't think we'll have a session two. If we do, please be sure to like be following our Queen Mary page on here so that you'll be updated on that. Uh,
Are there any more
I don't know what to say, you know, about the quiz, but yeah, no worries, no worries. Any other questions, guys? Just, you know, don't be afraid to ask, you know, there's no dumb question or anything like this. I've been asking very funny questions. You saw our Kahoot quiz.
questions? I mean, if you don't have any
Actually, I'm
questions,
curious. Does anyone
you could.
Well,
Oh,
that is
okay.
fine. If nobody has any
like?
question, we can wrap up the event. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Oh, thank you,
all right.
Melissa.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone for attending. Really appreciate everyone
Thank
turning
you,
up
everyone.
today.
I'm really happy that you guys came.
Thanks.